Welcome everyone to the Dungeon Mother. That was terrible. Welcome everyone to the Dungeon Mother. My name is Tina, and today we are going to go back into the Waves of Time. So previously on the Waves of Time, our heroes traveled into the brine seeking Sedna's guidance. As they delved there, they were faced with trial and had to sneak past the Dog of the Sea. Eventually, they gain an audience with the Goddess of Death and are informed about the three that will assist them in defeating their adversaries. These vestiges are known as the Mirror, the Gem, and the Sword. With a choice to make and learning that the Mirror is in Winterhaven, they decide to go there. And with that information, Sedna bestows upon them her boon and then sends them on their way. Eventually, through the use of teleportation and the swirling white lights around them, they find themselves finally on the shores of Winterhaven. All around them, gray clouds linger in the sky, threatening the city of Winterhaven and its pale beaches with rain. Gusts of wind roll in over the waves that crash into the beach, as the city gates are but a dot of gray over the hills of dead trees, as the cold stone walls snake around the city, as the great mountain of Eris, a dormant volcanic giant, looms in the distance. Our heroes take a moment to rest and consider Sedna's words, making camp as Kahame goes out to fish. Sal grows quieter as time passes and everyone delves into conversation and gathers a meal for themselves after the long journey. They discover, after being teleported, that they are ravishly hungry, a side effect from being in the land of the dead. In the midst of conversation, Sal suddenly clears his throat and admits to them that there is something that he needs to reveal. They all nod and allow Sal a moment to speak. It's longer than a moment as the old man is very chatty. I was a squire, under the attention and guidance of Raucus. At the time, he was the sixth point of the order, meaning that he was the head of Temple Canon. We served the banished emperor known as Chin Chow. He had fled his country years ago, and since then we have taken care of his descendants. Raucus was a great healer when I knew him, and he was greatly favored by my village and everyone within the temple. That changed very quickly, however, when a woman was washed upon our shores. My village took her in and tended to her, ensuring that she gained better health. And Raucus was the most involved. And with every moment in that woman's presence, something began to change within him. Before we knew it, and without warning, we were raided. Beasts of unspeakable appearance charged our shores, burning and killing. Raucus allowed her full access to our temple, and our home was under new rule. Most of our order was slain during the defense of our island, and the Order of the Six-Pointed Star was snuffed out in a matter of hours. Only a handful of us managed to make it out alive, and those that did swore themselves to other lords. My previous companions, the ones that you slew, did not take my request seriously. So I wonder if you will be different. My intent and hope was that you all would assist me in retaking my emperor's temple. It may be just a tomb now, but we weren't just guarding his remains. We were also guarding his family heirloom, Vikrama, the Sword of Valor bestowed upon our emperor by the Lady Sarandala herself. The very fact that it is in the hands of Igris, that snake-headed witch, is a dishonor to our emperor. Kahame takes this information with an eerie calm. A rage bubbles inside of him quietly, as the rest of the group begin more conversation detailing Raucus, questioning Sal's trustworthiness, until it is officially settled that they will take into consideration his request. Overall, they decide that the mirror should be first since they are in the area, and they begin to pack up camp and head towards the city. The rains begin to worsen as they travel onward towards Winterhaven. The sky has begun to darken. Heavy rain drizzles now over the dampened stone, seeping into the cracks and forging small rivers that pool into lakes. carriages and travelers stumble through the red mud as the gates yawn open for the evening traffic. Through the gates and beyond the shipment carts and merchant carriages is the bustling city of Winter Haven. Dark metal street lamps that seem to harbor a mysterious blue hue glisten over the cobbles that are slick with rain. Many citizens in the street duck into taverns and stores to avoid the storm. The swinging sign of 3 bears with mugs in their claws hangs above a nearby tavern. The Merry Bears is bustling with entertainment and conversation that echoes out into the streets. With the enticing scents and the idea of shelter, the players decide to venture into the Merry Bears, discovering that in fact it is run by bears. They are helped to a table by a brown grizzly bear woman with a small rambunctious cub that is biting at her heels. When asked, she makes mention of the fact that they are raising enough coin to awaken their son. And with that explanation out of the way, she finally takes their orders. Flabbergasted, and being an individual who was raised in a cave, Seth is uncertain whether or not this is considered normal. Lana shakes her head in disagreement, stating that this is not normal. As their orders are taken, the innkeep retreats back and then in a few moments returns with their orders. King, unfortunately, is less than pleased with the plate of giant centipede, and something new is ordered for her. They spend some time chatting, attempting to figure out what their next course of action should be when Lana takes notice of a help board on the wall. She finds several wanted for hire postings and entices the rest of the players to earn a little extra coin. After some discussion amongst themselves, they decide to take these 2 posters. Need demolition help. A demolition company is looking for outside help to clear out a vacant house. The reward is 50 gold per person, and they are allowed to scavenge whatever they desire within the house. And the second poster being, help! My cat Jingles is missing. Anyone who knows of her whereabouts or brings her back to me will receive 1,000 gold per person. Return her to me at 225 Rosewater Way. With fuller bellies, a well-needed rest, and a house to demolish, they decide to gather supplies for their new excursion. As they browse through the marketplace and an array of merchant stalls, Kahame encounters an elven man known as Joffrey Eveningstar, an NPC that I based from the well-known Jeffree Star cosmetic artist. In my game, he sells magical makeup that gives buffs and skills to abilities. Lipstick that boosts charisma, things like that. He has a warrior's collection, however, for those who aren't looking to look glamorous, which is known as war paint. Some descriptions to provide is that he is found wearing a heavy amount of makeup that currently provides perception and deception check bonuses. I portrayed him as excessively flirty and accompanied by 5 yipping Pomeranians in the back of his traveling cart. Among other items that he sells, he includes skincare, moisturizers, salves, and anything else that would assist in healing an individual. He is riddled in tattoos, has long, beautiful nails, huge diamond rings, pink fur attire, and he is always found drinking a stamina potion through a straw. His tagline, which is scrawled on the side of his cart, is empowering the world to be fearlessly glamorous. If you want to include this NPC into your game, feel free. My players absolutely loved it. As the rest of the players are searching around the marketplace looking for new wares and hoping to upgrade some of their items, Kahame is swept away by Joffrey. He offers him a free sample from his store. Kahame sort of shrugs and agrees to it, not thinking anything different and assuming that nothing could go wrong. By the time Joffrey is finished with him, our group returns, finding Kahame bedazzled and, having a complete makeover. The players are left concerned, and Kahame doesn't seem to be too bothered by his new makeover, and suggests that they should head towards their destination. They reach the furthest part of the city just before the upper quarter, where there is a wall that divides both portions of the city due to the breach, which is a chasm that billows out a sickening smog, and the muffled cries of inhuman creatures on the other side. Patrols of archers line the wall, firing every so often at something below, and the house that was mentioned on the tavern board lays before them. As they come up to the fence line, there is a foul smell that reeks from the property. They all make a comment on the smell, stating they could see why that they wanted the house to be brought down. At first, they don't want to go in, but the concept of gathering treasures from within entice them to press forward. As they all enter, they are luckily able to avoid the fumes and any nausea that might come after it. Lana makes a offhand comment about it being better than Sedna's own stench, which receives a glower from Seth, and they all continue to split apart as they search around the house. Namely, one of the most curious of objects was a crate full of jars of honey. Eventually, Persephone meanders into the bedroom, and she finds a handful of more odd items and abandoned trinkets. One of the items she comes upon is a deer skull, with an inscription written on the underside of it on a torn piece of parchment. Her house sinks down to death, it reads, and her course leads to the shades. All who go to her cannot return, and find again the paths of life. Curious by the word, she attempts to coin its meaning by rereading it. Through knowledge checks, however, she's unable to discern what it might mean. However, one further clue that she discovers is that within this room, the fumes are stronger and seem to source from the bed. She calls for Kahame, who charges into the room quickly, and the rest of the players as well, since they had confiscated much of what they could possibly find within this house. Lana looks under the bed, securing the area for traps, and when she declares that she finds a trap door, Kahame lifts the bed up and reveals an entrance. They all open the trap door, and the stench waves further in, all of them having to make constitution checks, of course. After making their saves, Persephone declares that only something dead smells like this, and rushes down the steps, very excited. With a heavy dose of disdain, the rest of her companions follow her. Smog permeates this room as they reach the end of the stairs, and across from them is a beast with a deer skull head, a diseased human body, and dark vulture-like wings that splay out around its form. It hunches over the torn corpse of a woman, its beak gnawing on her arm, rending flesh and consuming it. Blood cakes its bony head and leathery fingers. But at this time, it does not seem to notice the rest of the party as it continues to engorge itself on the corpse of the woman. Our players take this chance to catch the beast off guard. And in the midst of combat, Persephone makes a few knowledge checks to discern exactly what it is that they are fighting. She recalls in some of her studies in demonology that this beast is known as a Herald of Rot, known as a living embodiment of disease and decay. A Herald of Rot is an abomination of a humanoid, taking on detailed appearances from goats and vultures. Its eyeless sockets stare deep into its own prey, as a constant cloud of putrid offal hangs around the demon. Once summoned, a Herald of Rot will fixate on a given or chosen victim. Once fixated, they will speak telepathically to their prey, detailing how it will create decay and desolation on everything around that particular individual. At this time, Persephone was experiencing such visions and such telepathic messages from this beast. I went ahead and put the link in the description below, just in case you wanted to use this monster in your own games. Just as a side note, these creatures tend to only work with demon lords, and are often sent off as guards or sentries of important structures, or often as an enhancement to tortures. So, just keep that in mind when you want to play this monster. Our heroes fight haphazardly against this beast, with Persephone receiving these strange messages and heightening her anxieties as they were, and Lana using her torrents of draconic flame, with Kahame also wielding his trident. They eventually slay this creature, but are left to question exactly how it got here. Clues around them lead them to believe that it is a failed summoning. As they pillage the room, Kahame finds an assortment of items, including a rather large bag of gold and a very, very rare weapon. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a axe of some form that was worth a good amount of gold as well. Lana, feeling like she was failing in her roguish duties, attempted to search for more items at this time. But Persephone manages to discover more knowledge through a journal that she finds underneath the corpse of the woman, and it carries the following information. By the way, apologies for the length of this information. I want to detail it as much as possible so you all are kind of on the same page as the players. On the first page of this book, as Seth flips through it, she finds a smashed flower, which turns out to be a sweet pea. Its pink exterior bleeds onto the other side of the page, which has a message. Minds are like flowers, and they only open when the time is right. Continuing on past this passage, she finds several ritualistic diagrams that are roughly sketched in, as well as the title of this book, which is called The Language of Flowers. Further in, she discovers journal entries that are haunting. Remembrance 23. Let's go ahead that I'm pretending to read from this book, but I'm not, because this is the Book of Nod, and as you know, it's not the Book of Flowers. Violet has ordered us to collect more children after that ash-skinned wench demanded a treaty from all of us. The fact that we are consorting with outsiders threatens our very existence. Ever since Petunia withered and Violet was taken her place, there's been so much change. Recruiting a non-believer, Larkspur, quite a fitting name indeed. Remembrance 25. Today was Larkspur's initiation. Purge, and she'll be safe along with her sweet angelic little boy. Oh, I gag every time she talks about that worthless parasite. The look on her face when I had to kill that little urchin girl in front of her was delicious. I'm surprised Violet hasn't sent Anemone, Mookshood, or Sweet Pea on her doorstep yet. No matter. We have her son, and she will need to be inclined to do whatever we demand, or he's the next vial we fill for that drow witch, Syndra. Remembrance 27. I'm gonna go ahead and pretend I'm flipping through another page here, because that's fun, right? Another dull, worthless meeting in the garden. Peony, Hellebore, Geranium, and Rose were all late, sodding again. Violet is a sad replacement for Petunia. At least Marigold, Hyacinth, Snapdragon, and Begonia are a bit reliable. They've all spoken about splitting off. Snapdragon has even suggested I'd be a better replacement over Violet. The idea does sound nice. Remembrance 30. That sodding hag. Really? She dare send Monkshood at my doorstep? There's much to beware, Rose. Fisherman's That sodding harpy will pay for threatening me. I've just the thing to get rid of her once I finish these bloody scribbles. Snapdragon was kind to lend me access to her ritual tome. I'll take Violet down and make the others submit to me. A Glibrizu's power and blessing will do the trick. At this time, Persephone is deeply concerned about the mention of Syndra, being that Syndra used to be Maeve's main henchman, and it seems that she is working for her once again. The memories of this cruel drow witch and her mother flood back to her, leaving her in an emotional distress that allows the players to start to question what exactly her relationship to Maeve might be. Persephone avoids these questions, however, and states that she'd rather not talk about them here. Seeing that that is fair, considering that they are in a room that had a demonic ritual and lots of blood everywhere, even though Seth enjoys blood, they decide to pack their things and head out of the house. To finish their demolition, Lana begins to torch the establishment itself through Dragon's Fire, and they make their way back through the city. Before they return to the construction company, however, the rain still drizzling over the city, patterns on rooftops, and cobbled stones. Their eyes wander to a strange shape laying in the gutter of the alley. It is small, possibly angular, but hard to determine from this distance. As they come closer to this form in the gutter, they find the limp, emaciated corpse of an infant. Flakes of skin peel from its lips as a twinge of blue mixes with the paleness of the skin. Abandoned on the street with its throat cut is a human baby. And this is where we left off our last session. I know this is darker than the last couple of sessions that we've had, but I wanted to explain the reasoning why, or at least the reasoning as to where I might have gotten the idea for such a thing. So I created the organization of the Midwives through an actual human trafficking group found in Europe in the 1800s. I drew inspiration from the terrible real-life story of midwives, women themselves, that would actually hunt and take children and steal them away from their families, trading them off through human trafficking rings for profit. Thankfully, in time, these women were caught, and hopefully in this game, the players will come to find them as well and bring them to justice. If you enjoyed our story so far, go ahead and hit that like button and consider subscribing for more videos. Until the next adventure, I'll see you then.